Hello and welcome back to another episode of Therapy and Panels. Everyone's aware of the rivalry of Marvel and DC, especially nowadays. But believe it or not, back in the day, there was a time where they used to work together, making some crossover comics. The very first being in 1976 with the crossover Superman vs. The Amazing Spider-Man, a much more entertaining idea than Batman v Superman Yawn of Boredom, and every now and again until 2003 with the end of one of my personal favorite books we will possibly look at in the future review, being JLA/Avengers. The concept for the crossovers can vary sometimes, as some stories state that the universes collide with each other, and other stories will say that these heroes have always existed in the same universe as each other. Which is something always weird to me when you think about it. Where were the Avengers during events such as Doomsday's attack? Or the Thanos snap? What happened with the Justice League? And I don't know, that's just my opinion on that. It's always just weird. But I digress. But for today, we are going to be looking at one such crossover with two of Marvel's biggest cash cows, Spider-Man and Batman. The cover is decent with the artwork done by Mark Bagley, showing our two heroes on a building site in Gotham. At least I assume Gotham, with the bat signal out there in the background, which, by the way, nice addition with the webbing on it. We begin the story with both heroes waking up from nightmares of their origin stories involving the death of each other's loved ones. Seen it. Later on, Peter decides to pay a visit to the Ravencroft Institute, which is the Marvel equivalent to Arkham Asylum, where he has Dr. Ashley Kafka help him to pay a visit to Carnage, who makes an attempt to escape before being dealt with by Spider-Man and the security guards using microwave guns. As they are cleaning up the mess dealt by Carnage, a woman by the name of Dr. Cassandra Breyer, who was ordered by the government to try an experimental neural implant onto psychopaths like Cletus Cassidy to make him more docile due to basically being sick and tired of the lives and property damage that are dealt by these people who clearly aren't being cured of their insanity through the normal practices. Basically the equivalent of a high-tech lobotomy. And if you haven't already thought about the ways this is gonna go wrong, don't worry, it'll happen soon. We then cut to Gotham with Batman and Joker doing their usual dance number until Joker is sent right back to Arkham, where Breyer has arrived, showing off what she has done with Cassidy as proof for her experimental implant, and gets permission to do it on the Joker, which a week later at a news conference she shows off to both him and Cassidy, declaring to the public she will be using these chips throughout the country with all psychopaths. As they are in the car ride after the conference, Cletus finally snaps, declaring that the moment the surgery was done, his symbiote destroyed the implant, and he has just been playing this whole time. Called it. Before he can start his fun, it is revealed that one of the guards was really Batman in disguise. How did he hide the ears in that mask? And luckily for Breyer, before Cletus can end up killing her, Spider-Man arrives to save her, having followed Carnage to Gotham, and he and Batman begin fighting Carnage, with Joker in the background scared out of his mind. Batman, being his usual self, states to Spider-Man during this fight with Carnage to say that he doesn't need Spidey's help. But before any more arguments during this fight can continue, Carnage decides to kill some of the guards to distract the heroes so he can make a clear getaway with the Joker. Afterwards, when taking care of any survivors from the attack, Batman tells Spider-Man that he needs to stay out of the city, and he doesn't need any help with him for when it comes to dealing with Carnage, which, okay, dude, this is a man with this just about the same amount as insanity, if not more, compared to the Joker, but with superpowers. And Joker, you can barely handle him, while Spidey, someone with superpowers, has usually needed to have multiple people to help him just to take down this one guy. There's only so many times where using the excuse of, because I'm Batman, works, and with something like this, you definitely are needing the help, man. Elsewhere, Carnage talks with Joker about how much of a fan he has been of the Clown Prince of Crime, and uses his symbiote to remove his implant, Total Recall style, and the two decide to work together. Back at the Batcave, Bats is going over any files he has on Carnage, but due to such his chaotic nature he's having a very hard time trying to figure out his way of doing things, unlike how he can with most other criminals he goes up against. And he decides he actually does need help. Shocker. Meanwhile, Spidey, while swinging through the city, is thinking at first maybe he should just leave Gotham, until a quick mugging he deals with, he remembers it's not in his nature to avoid stuff like this, and before he can even think twice again about it, Batman arrives, telling him to get into the Batmobile, and stating that he definitely is going to need his help with his knowledge on Carnage. And now with our two heroes finally on the same page, will they be able to stop these two psychotic supervillains? What are these two supervillains planning to do with Gotham City? Will these two villains even be able to work together? Well, as always, I'm gonna have that answer be left off to you by locating the book any way you can. But for my final thoughts, this is just an okay book. We get some nice parallels with Peter and Bruce, as well as Joker and Carnage. The plot, while not terrible, is pretty thin, and it's kind of predictable with a few things. And while I'm not gonna get too spoilery on this, in my opinion, when it comes to the ending, it's really kind of weak. And with that, that'll be the end of today's session. I'd like to thank all of you for attending this episode of Therapy and Panels. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I am the Super Guru, signing off.